My name is Aaron, and the first company I ever built didn't have my name on the paperwork. My fingerprints were all over the code. My sketches were all over the whiteboards. My savings were in the early hosting bills. But as far as the state, the IRS, and every investor we met were concerned, it belonged to visionary founder Alex Turner. At 22, he was my best friend, my co-conspirator, and temporarily my blind spot. At 32, I sat across from him in a federal bankruptcy court auction room as a qualified cash bidder with a number paddle in my hand. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. "You can't be serious," he whispered, eyes darting between me and the stack of documents in front of us. I tapped the paddle on my knee. "Business is business," I said. "You taught me that, remember?" This is the story of how my best friend stole our startup idea, and how I walked back into his life years later as the cash buyer at his bankruptcy auction. We met freshman year in the back of a computer science lecture hall. I was there because I'd fallen in love with code in high school and didn't know what else to major in. He was there because, in his words, this is the closest thing to hacking the universe. Day 1, the professor asked a question about runtime complexity. The room went silent. Alex raised his hand, gave a long, half-correct answer, and then cornered me after class to argue about it. "You looked like you knew I was wrong," he said, falling into step beside me. "Why didn't you say anything?" "I didn't want to be that person on the first day," I said. He grinned. "You should be that person," he said. "Everyone else is boring." We became inseparable. Group projects, hackathons, coffee runs, late-night debates about everything from Linux versus Windows to whether AI would save the world or end it. Sophomore year, he moved into my friend group's off-campus apartment. By junior year, we were finishing each other's functions and each other's complaints about professors. "Someday we should just build our own thing," he'd say, waving his hand at a clunky assignment. "Stop making these people's wish lists for free." "Someday," I'd say. I didn't realize someday was already sneaking up on us. The idea that changed everything came, like most good ones, from annoyance. Our campus job board was a mess. Outdated listings. Broken links. No way for students to easily see which gigs were legit and which were shady door-to-door sales jobs dressed up as marketing internships. I just trekked across town to an internship that turned out to be selling knives in strangers' kitchens. I came home mad. "We could fix this," I ranted, slamming my bag on the table. "Give students a platform where employers have to verify themselves, where pay is listed up front, where students can rate the gigs." Alex leaned back in his chair. "You're describing a product," he said. "A real one. That the career office should have built 5 years ago," I said. "Or that we build," he countered. We stayed up all night sketching. At 3 a.m., there was a rough outline of what would become Campus Path, a two-sided platform for vetted student jobs and internships. He handled more of the back-end design. I obsessed over the UX. We both wrote code. We scrounged up hosting money from part-time jobs. We didn't incorporate. We didn't have lawyers. We had a Google Doc labeled Founder Agreement with bullet points like 50/50 co-founders, decisions by consensus, no screwing each other over. You can tell exactly how young someone is by how much faith they put in an unsigned Google Doc. We launched a janky beta on our campus. Students loved it. Within a semester we had a couple thousand users, a handful of local businesses posting jobs, a professor who let us count it as independent study credit. People started saying the word startup around us. We started saying it about ourselves. We applied to a student-run incubator. Got in. Got access to mentors. Free pizza. A list of angel investors looking to support young founders. That's when things started to shift. Not overnight, but enough that, in hindsight, the warning signs were clear. Alex loved the spotlight. He could walk into a room of VCs and make them laugh in 30 seconds. I liked the work. The building. The testing. The part of the pitch deck where you had to back things up with real numbers instead of vibes. So when the incubator director suggested that Alex be the face of Campus Path, it made a certain kind of sense. "You're both founders," she said. "But every company needs a primary storyteller. Investors get confused if there are too many voices." "I'm okay with that," I said. "As long as the cap table matches reality." She nodded. "Of course," she said. "Get your formation docs in order." She gave us the card of a lawyer who did discounted work for student startups. We made an appointment. I couldn't go. My little brother ended up in the ER that day, and I drove home to be with my family. Reschedule? I texted. Don't worry, Alex replied. I'll handle it. We'll sign everything when you're back. Family first. I believed him. That missed meeting turned out to be the most expensive hospital visit of my life. When I got back 2 days later, Alex had a stack of documents on the table. Good news, he said. We're officially a Delaware C Corp, Campus Path Inc. I flipped through the papers. Articles of incorporation. Bylaws. Stock allocation. Something felt off. Why does this list you as the only founder? I asked, finger tapping the page. He waved a hand. You know lawyers, he said. They want one name for simplicity. I'm the CEO. You're the CTO. Same thing. It's not the same thing, I said. Where's my stock? He pointed to another page. There, he said. You've got options, 10%. That's huge for an early-stage technical lead. Most people are happy with 2. 10, I repeated. We're going to raise capital, he said. We need a pool. We can't split 50/50 and still bring investors in. This is just how the game works. I stared at him. The game we agreed on was 50/50, I said. That's what we put in our founder doc. He chuckled. A Google Doc is not legally binding, he said. This is. Come on, Aaron. Be smart. Either you're in with 10% of something big, or you walk on principle and end up with nothing. My cheeks burned. Why didn't you talk to me? I asked. Why did you sign all this without me? You weren't here, he said. The lawyer needed to file. The window was now. I made a decision. For both of us, I said. For the company, he corrected. Sometimes you have to separate friendship from business. He slid a pen toward me. Sign, he said. We've got a pitch meeting on Friday. Don't blow this over feelings. I didn't sign. Not that night. I took the documents home. I called the lawyer. She confirmed. Alex had presented himself as sole founder. She'd never been told there was another co-founder expecting equity. Changing the structure now would complicate things but was doable if both parties agreed. When I confronted Alex with that, he got defensive. You're acting like I stole something, he said. I built half the product. I got us into the incubator. I'm the one investors want to talk to. You're great at code, but you're replaceable. Do you really want to have this fight and risk the whole thing? That word, replaceable. It lodged in my throat. I thought we were partners, I said. We are, he said. Just, not exactly the way you pictured. Welcome to startups. It's messy. That was the night our friendship died. I just didn't bury it right away. I didn't sign. I didn't quit immediately either. For a while, I existed in a weird limbo. I still fixed bugs, attended stand-ups, showed up to investor meetings as the tech lead. I watched Alex describe his vision. I watched him wave vaguely at me when people asked who built the product. This genius, he'd say, like he was patting a pet on the head. I started keeping copies of everything. Git logs, design docs, emails. Not because I was planning a lawsuit. I didn't have the money or time. Because I needed a record for myself. Proof I hadn't made the whole thing up. That I had been there. That I'd built something real. We got a small pre-seed round from a local angel group. Enough to rent a tiny office and hire 2 interns. My equity stayed on paper at 10%. Alex's ego ballooned to match the cap table. Once we raise the seed, we'll revisit things, he promised. You'll get more. I just need to control the pitch right now. I stopped believing him. 3 months later, a recruiter from a big tech company reached out to me on LinkedIn. Loved what you did with Campus Path, she wrote. We're building a similar marketplace product at scale. Interested in chatting? I was. I went through their interview process. Got an offer with a real salary, real benefits, a signing bonus, equity vesting in a company that actually filed its paperwork correctly. I took it. When I told Alex I was leaving, he looked shocked. You can't go, he said. You're critical. We're about to start serious seed talks. This is bad optics. You told me I was replaceable, I said. Act like it. He spluttered. What about your equity, he asked. It's options in a company where the founder doesn't consider me a partner, I said. If it hits a home run, great. 10% will be decent. If it crashes, it wasn't going to matter anyway. Either way, I'm done building for someone who signs away my share without asking. He tried one last guilt trip. Friends don't bail when it gets hard, he said. Friends don't quietly cut each other down from 50% to 10 and call it leadership, I replied. I left. He replaced me with 2 junior developers and press releases about team growth. At the new company, I learned what grown-up tech looked like. Product roadmaps, quarterly reviews, deals that took months. M&A. Our division acquired a smaller startup one year. I watched the due diligence, the negotiation, the way assets and IP got valued separate from founders' egos. I soaked it all in. I built my own life. I paid off my student loans. I maxed out my 401k. I got my first taste of stock options that actually meant something. I didn't stalk Alex's social media. Not much. Occasionally, a Campus Path headline would cross my feed. Local startup connects students and employers. Campus Path raises $3M seed round. Campus Path founder speaks at conference. About co-founders and culture. Each time, a small part of me flared with anger. Then died down. I was doing well. He was doing whatever he was doing. Our paths had diverged. Until they didn't. The first hint that things weren't going well for Campus Path came at a tech meetup. I was talking to another founder, Sarah, about marketplaces when she rolled her eyes. Don't get me started on student job platforms, she said. Did some advisory work for one that burned through more cash than a Silicon Valley bonfire. Which one? I asked casually. Campus Path, she said. You know them? Vaguely, I said, sipping my drink. She snorted. The founder is a character, she said diplomatically. Raised more than he knew what to do with. Hired like crazy. Zero discipline. When we asked about unit economics, he literally said, "We'll figure that out after we're a unicorn." I laughed, a little too hard. 2 years later, a friend forwarded me an article. Campus Path cuts 70% of staff amid restructuring. I read it. Word salad about right-sizing for current market conditions. I felt nothing. Startups failed all the time. People moved on. Then Dan handed me that distress note spreadsheet. And suddenly, it wasn't abstract anymore. It was line 14, Campus Path Inc. Loan balance, $4,200,000 status, non-performing. They'd taken out a big venture debt line after their Series A betting on growth that never came. Now the bank wanted out. The note sale process was similar to the church mortgage I'd handled in another life. The bank had a legal claim on Campus Path's assets, collateral in the form of IP, equipment, maybe some receivables. A borrower in default. They could push for immediate foreclosure on the company assets, or sell their position to someone else willing to handle the mess. We made a bid. So did a few other funds. We won. My LLC put in a slice. A few months later, with the company still unable to right the ship, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Reorganization. On paper. In reality, liquidation. Their main valuable asset was the codebase and brand. The thing Alex and I had once scribbled on napkins at 3 a.m. Bankruptcy court scheduled an auction. Whoever showed up with the best bid cash, clean, no drama would walk away owning what was left of Campus Path. That's how I found myself, at 32, in a courtroom with a number paddle, across the aisle from my former best friend. Alex looked different. The swagger was gone. He'd lost weight and color. His lawyer sat next to him, flipping through documents. He kept glancing around, eyes darting from face to face, until they landed on me. He blinked. Did a double take. You, he said, as if I'd crashed his private funeral. Me, I said. He stood, leaning over the small divider between rows. What are you doing here? He hissed. This is a private auction. Bankruptcy auctions are public, I said. That's kind of the point. He glanced at the file in my hand. Saw the bidder information. Realization hit. You're bidding? He asked, voice cracking. My fund is, I said. I'm part of the fund. You can't, he said. This is my company. I looked at the seal on the courtroom wall. The judge's bench. The stack of motions labeled in Re. Campus Path Inc. Debtor. I don't see your name on any of this, I said softly. Just the company's. His jaw clenched. Why would you do this? He said. After everything? You left. You've got your cushy job. Why show up now to pick at the bones? It's a good product, I said. It always was. I'd rather see it end up with someone who understands it than some random corporate raider who closes it and sells the mailing list. Don't act like this is altruism, he spat. It's not, I said. It's business. I'm here because the numbers make sense. The fact that it's you on the other side is history, nothing more. That was a lie. It was more than history. But I needed to believe it enough to act professionally. The clerk called the room to order. We sat. The auction began. The judge explained the rules. Bidding would start at a stalking horse offer from a larger company that wanted the assets. Others could compete by offering higher bids with better terms. We were one of the others. The initial bid was $1 million cash plus assumption of certain liabilities. We'd done the math. We thought the assets were worth more. We also didn't want to overpay out of spite. This wasn't about winning at any cost. It was about getting a fair deal. Opening bid acknowledged, the clerk said. Do we have any competing offers? Our attorney stood. Your Honor, fund name, is prepared to offer $1.2 million cash, no contingencies, he said. Murmurs. Alex stared at me. He whispered something to his lawyer, who shook his head. There were only two serious bidders. Us and the original stalking horse. We went back and forth. $1.3 million million. $1.35. $1.4. At $1.45 million million, the other side hesitated. They were a big company. They could have gone higher. But they were disciplined. The senior executive whispered to their counsel. They shook their heads. Your Honor, my client is not prepared to increase its offer, the counsel said. Very well, the judge said. Any further bids? Silence. Then the court approved sale of the debtor's assets to fund name for $45 million, subject to final paperwork. Gavel. Just like that, Campus Path Inc. The name, the code, the brand, the little blue logo we drew one night on a pizza box belonged to us. To me, in part. To someone who remembered what it had been before it became a line item in a failed fund's portfolio. Alex looked like he might be sick. After the hearing in the hallway, he cornered me again. You got what you wanted, he said bitterly. Happy now? What do you think I wanted? I asked. Revenge, he said. To watch me fail. To rub my face in it. I studied him. I didn't need to buy your company to know you failed, I said. The layoff articles covered that. He flinched. This wasn't all me, he said. The market turned. Investors pulled back. We had bad luck. You also burned through $15 million in 3 years without a clear path to sustainability, I said. You hired a sales team before you had product market fit. You refused to listen when people pointed out problems. That's not luck. He glared. You think you would have done better? He said. Maybe, I said. Maybe not. We'll never know. Because you never gave me the chance. You told me I was replaceable and cut me off the formation docks. Remember? He looked away. That was a lifetime ago, he muttered. Choices age, I said. Consequences catch up. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Finally, he said, So what now? You going to slap my name on some press release? Scorned ex-co-founder triumphs? No, I said. I'm going to quietly rebuild this in a way that might actually work. And your name won't be on anything. That's worse, he said hoarsely. Erasing me. You erased me first, I said. This is just balancing the repo. I walked away before he could answer. Owning a failed startup's assets is not the same as owning a successful company. We got the code, the brand, some customer contracts we chose to honor, a small team of engineers who stuck around through the chaos and were thrilled to have competent leadership. We did not get a magically revived business, a clean slate, a guarantee of anything. We rebranded slightly, tightened scope, focused on a few core universities, premium matching services for high-quality employers. We changed the revenue model, less ad hoc, more subscription-based for employers. We audited the codebase Alex had once touted as world-class. It was messy in places, genius in a few, mostly salvageable. We paid the engineers fairly, gave them honest equity in the new entity. I sat down with them and told the truth. I was there at the beginning, I said. Then I wasn't. This time, I'm not disappearing. If you stick with us, you'll see how this plays out. For the first few months, every time I walked into our office, a different one. Not the old co-working space, I'd get flashes of the apartment where it all started. Late nights coding. Inside jokes. The sound of Alex saying, "We'll be legends." Everything was different now. And thankfully, so was I. People ask me, did it feel good? Watching his signature product brief with my name on it now. Seeing his little logo under my email. Technically not. Emotionally. A little. It felt satisfying. Not in a haha, got you way. In a I got my part of this back way. There's a difference. Alex had built layers on top of our shared foundation. Those layers, good and bad, were his. I wasn't trying to steal those. Bankruptcy and the auction system had already stripped him of ownership. I just stepped into the spot that was going to be filled by someone. I made sure that someone had at least some connection to the thing before it became a stock symbol in someone else's slide deck. A few months after the auction, I got an email from a former Campus Path employee named Lena. She'd been one of the interns when I was there. Later, a full-time engineer. "I heard you're running the new company," she wrote. "For what it's worth, I'm glad. You were always the one who seemed to actually care if the site worked for students." Alex cared if it worked for his ego. I saved that email. Printed it. Taped it inside my notebook. Not as a trophy. As a reminder. I'm not going to pretend that everything was smooth sailing. Startups are still startups. We still had bugs. Deals that fell through. Nights I stared at burn rate spreadsheets and wondered if we'd make it. But we were disciplined. We didn't raise more than we needed. We didn't hire faster than our revenue. We listened to our users. Every time a student said, "This helped me get a non-scam internship," it hit something inside me I hadn't known was still sore. Because I remember being that student. The one who took a bus to an internship that turned out to be door-to-door pest control sales. The one whose frustrations sparked the napkin sketches. The product had always been bigger than our falling out. Bigger than Alex's betrayal. Bigger than my revenge. It deserved to exist. Just without the old baggage attached. Years after the auction, I ran into Alex at a conference. He was consulting. Doing some advisory work. He'd softened. Humility had chipped away at the arrogance. "Well," he said, standing by the coffee table. "Looks like you've done all right." "So have you," I said, nodding at his badge. "Not the way I thought," he admitted. "But I'm okay." There was an awkward pause. "I was a jerk," he blurted. "Back then. With the incorporation. With the PR. I thought I needed to own everything to be somebody. I screwed you over. I know that." It wasn't the apology I'd imagined in my darkest fantasies. No public confession on Twitter. No handwritten letter with percentages changed. But it was something. "I know," I said. "I'm glad someone who actually loved the product that much ended up with it," he said. "Even if it's not me." "Me too," I said. "We didn't become friends again. We didn't need to. We just walked away from that table a little lighter." If you're listening to this and thinking about your own version of Alex, someone who took advantage of your trust, your work, your late nights, it's tempting to fantasize about some grand comeback. A courtroom. An auction. A title change on a door. Those moments can happen. But here's what I learned. The real power isn't in the day you buy something back. It's in the years you spend building something new while they're busy defending something old. I didn't become a cash buyer at my ex-best friend's bankruptcy auction overnight. I became one by taking the job that paid reliably, learning how capital works, saving when it would have been easier to spend, saying yes to opportunities that had nothing to do with proving him wrong. By the time I walked into that courtroom, the revenge was already 90% complete. I'd built a life where his opinion of me didn't determine what I could do. Buying Campus Path was just the last 10%, a way to honor the part of that story that had always been mine. So yes. My best friend stole our startup idea. He registered the company without me. He called me replaceable and cut me down to 10%. Years later, I sat in the auction of his failed company and bought the assets with cash he didn't think I'd ever have. Not because I wanted to hurt him. Because I wanted to reclaim the thing I'd helped build and steward it better. And if, in the process, the girl who once read founder off a Google Doc with no lawyer finally got her name on real documents, that's a story I'm okay telling. Thank you for listening to mine.